Hoi, my name is Sanne and I've got a, let's say, generous Dutch book haul for you. I think this video could be seen as like an unofficial follow-up to my previous video that I posted, which was all about Dutch reading culture and what Dutch people actually read. And in it I discussed that I, as a native Dutch speaker who moved to England 10 years ago, would love to explore Dutch literature a bit more, but I often felt like because of the classics that I read in high school, there just wasn't really anything in it for me, which I now know isn't true, and I've started following more people on Instagram who recommend great Dutch literature. There were so many thoughtful comments on that Dutch video essay as well, so to anyone who left a comment or shared it, thank you so much. Okay, so I've got a big stack of books. If you don't speak Dutch yourself, don't worry, this channel is not turning into a Dutch literature review channel, but I thought it would be interesting to do a follow-up because the last few times that I've gone to the Netherlands, I've bought a ton of books that I'm very excited about. So I wanted to share those with you. So some of these were recommended by online book reviewers that I follow on Instagram. I also went to a few bookshops and asked for recommendations. In one of the bookshops I asked for science fiction recommendations by Dutch authors, which was a tricky question. And in the other bookshop I just said I am looking for cool, new, relevant, interesting authors. Can you give me a bit of a selection? And then I'll pick from that. So I think I've got an interesting list here, so let's get into it. I think I'm going to start with sci-fi / climate change. Hold on to your hats. First of all, I have 7B or 7B by Afke Romein. Trying to pronounce Dutch names in between English speaking is difficult, so please don't come for me. This is set in the year 2040 and there's an ongoing war for natural resources, and then in the Dutch province of Groningen there is a brand new city called 7B which was built for the soldiers that are involved in this war. It seems to be about like state secrets and infiltrating and spying, and I'm sure a wide variety of topics, but this immediately spoke to me, and I think the cover is quite interesting as well. One of the comments that I got on the Dutch video essay was of someone complaining that Dutch book covers are ugly, which I think used to be quite accurate. I have seen some really interesting changes though, and some interesting covers, so you'll see them come by. Then there is Charlatans by Daphne Housden. This is one that I just came by myself. I think it was maybe in a new releases or a top 10 pile in a bookshop. And this cover is actually what drew me in initially. Do not be afraid to be led by covers sometimes, because they have been designed to find the right audience. So if you feel yourself drawn towards a cover, it could be because the book is in your field of interest. This is about a character who returns to her idyllic hometown, but then like an organization, a bureau has been installed there and seems to be like ensuring that everyone behaves in a moral way by the use of like a contract that everyone's had to sign. From the description of this, I immediately got 1984 vibes. There is a resistance. It is about society and individuals and change. Also, as I found out, for a lot of the books that I bought, this book was made possible by a grant from the Dutch Foundation for Literature and also the city of Rotterdam. So that's very cool. If you want to know more about that and haven't watched my video essay yet, go check that out. I may have made a small mistake for the next one, but I think it's a reasonable mistake. So I bought this in the Netherlands and I was very excited about it. It is called Het tegenovergestelde van een mens, the opposite of a human being, a person, by Lieke Marsman. I like this cover, this collage style. You will see again. So this author is a philosopher and a poet, and also the current Dutch poet laureate. And the back of this doesn't give you much information. It says it plays with our ideas about climate change and identity and will make you dizzy. I was like, that's very cool. Came home and realized that a few weeks before that I had bought the English translation, The Opposite of a Person by Lieke Marsman, translated by Sophie Collins, recommended to me in my local bookshop. And I thought, how is it possible that I bought this, the Dutch one, and I didn't realize I already owned it? And it's because the description here is just so different. The Dutch one doesn't give you any plot description. The plot description in the translated version says, when Ida, a Dutch climatologist, accepts an internship at a climate research institute in the Italian Alps, it means leaving her girlfriend Robin behind in Amsterdam. An unflinchingly honest narrative of vulnerability and introspection is disrupted by essays and poems. And I'm gonna have to decide whether I read the Dutch or the translated version. I'll probably do the Dutch one first. Another climate change book, I did say it was a theme. So this is Zee Nu by Eva Meijer, which means sea now, as in ocean now. And in case you don't know, a lot of the Netherlands is originally below sea level, and there's been a lot of work done around the coast to ensure that those areas don't flood, and it means that climate change and rising water levels are obviously front of mind in the Netherlands in a certain way. Eva Meijer is also a philosopher and an author. I sense a theme. And so this is a scenario where the ocean has gone like kilometers inwards, like into the Netherlands. There are press conferences, Germany is helping out and taking in refugees. Pretty clear premise. But I am curious how the author will approach this. Then something a bit more experimental that came recommended by a bookseller that maybe I wouldn't have picked up myself. But I thought, let's try it out. It is Worm Moon by Mariken Heidsman. And it was also the winner of a big literature prize in 2022. And it says, a surreal search for identity, origin, and meaning. And when you read the little blurb, it doesn't make much sense to me. But the main character has like a bad time at work and then goes to one of the Dutch islands in search for something. And there's also something about like stories from ancestors. I think this is one that I just have to read, but I think the personal recommendation and the prize kind of won me over. Also, the author studied biology and works in a field related to that as well. I don't know what genre this one belongs in actually, but it is by the author of We Had to Remove This Post, which was translated by Emma Rault. Mixing the Dutch and English is a struggle. It is Een Modern Verlangen by Hannah Barefoots. It's 14 short stories. I did a translation workshop recently and we translated one of these stories and was very curious about it. I quite like her writing style. It's like beautiful but very straightforward. And you can see once again it has the collage style of cover. I don't know if it says who designed this actually. It's the same publisher. Dog and Pony did the cover design for this. Then I have a few books that are related to colonialism and immigration. First there is this classic called Wij Slaven van Suriname by Anton de Kom, who you can see on the back here. So this was originally published in 1934. It says it's a literary masterpiece. It's both a personal and a general history about racism, and it was the very first book that described the history of Suriname from an anti-colonial point of view. And interestingly, this edition has 3 different introductions by different authors, and I think this will be a really great piece to have a few different introductions for. I think I've mentioned it in a previous video that I was looking for something like this in Dutch because I feel like I've read books with similar themes but centered on like the British Empire. I thought it'd be really important to read similar things but related to the Netherlands as well. On the same topic, this is called The New Colonial Reading List or Canon, and this is super interesting. It is a collection of essays by Dutch contemporary authors, both white authors and authors of color, and they are responding to the Dutch classics and kind of talking about looking at them in a different light. And at the same time, they're also highlighting some different authors that they think maybe should be included in the canon or they think people should know more about. So I think this will be a really great one for discovering different authors. Then this book showed up in my previous video as well, and I got a few comments already of people saying they absolutely loved it. And it is De Hemel is Altijd Paars by Soleil Rezazadeh. Again, it has won awards. It's been longlisted for awards. It's also so funny because Dutch books very often put the author like fully on the back cover, which I think is interesting. It's quite a short novel about a young Iranian woman who decides to move to the Netherlands. She gets a job in a secondhand shop and she becomes friends with different people. I think a lot of it will be, you know, observations about her life in the Netherlands. Very curious about that, and also it came highly recommended by the bookseller that I asked. I also picked up a deal, an absolute steal. Most of these books were like over 20 euros. But this is the debut novel by Jaap Robin Birk. I guess that's how you pronounce it. Yeah. His writing is really beautiful. It's about a boy who lives with his parents on a small island between Scotland and Norway, and his dad goes for a swim and then doesn't return. I can imagine that this will be absolutely heartbreaking and beautiful. Also, Jaap Robin's work often gets recommended for teenagers because it's quite accessible as well. Then we're ending with some like historical fantasy related things. This is brand new and it is Hine by Lotte Kok. This is based on a miracle play originally published in 1515 called Marieke van Nijmegen, but it's a Middle Dutch text about a girl who spent 7 years with the devil, and this is inspired by that play. So cool to see. Then we've got some YA fantasy, De Zwendelprins by Rima Ori. The Swindler Prince, which is about a curious 17-year-old kitchen maid, and it's about a missing prince. The author also has a new book out called In het vervloekte hart, In the cursed heart, which I'm very excited about, but I bought this first a while ago, so I'm gonna read this first. And the new book is also based on colonial Suriname, so I think it'll be really interesting to read. She also posted a great response about my discussion of Dutch fantasy on her TikTok, so if you're Dutch you should go check that out. And finally, there was a book that when I saw this in the train station bookshop, I was shocked. I think it's just not something I was expecting to see in Dutch, and it is Mary by Anne Eickhout. This is about Mary Shelley, the author of Frankenstein. I'm a longtime fan. I think it's initially set during the time where she is writing Frankenstein, but then she has like a flashback to 4 years ago when she was living in Scotland, and maybe something happened to her that inspired Frankenstein. Don't know how much this is based in truth or how much it is like an interpretation. I am still reading Romantic Outlaws, which is also about Mary Shelley, but I haven't gotten to the Frankenstein bit yet, so I don't know enough about that. But I love that this exists, and again, wonderful cover, very good looking. All right, so that is my Dutch book haul. Those are some of the Dutch books that I'm really looking forward to reading. If any of this surprised you, intrigued you, let me know in a comment below. And of course, any further recommendations for like people who talk about Dutch books that I should follow on the internet, please let me know. And I'll see you soon. Doei!